Lawrence on behalf of the people.
Even on behalf of Ms. Nash.
And we are here on a sentencing for a plea taken on September 18th for a fail to report an accident. Has everybody received the pre-sentence report and recommendation from the probation office?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any corrections that need to be made to that?
Not to my knowledge, Your Honor.
Not from my end, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Lawrence, do we have any victim input?
We do, Your Honor. I believe the father of the minor child who is the victim would like to speak.
All right.
I apologize, Your Honor. They would not wish to make a statement.
All right. Is there any written impact statement?
No, Your Honor.
Elocution, Ms. O'Mara?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Nash has been incredibly, beating herself up a lot about this. She understands the severity of her mistake. She understands that, it is unacceptable to strike a child with your car, even regardless of what outcome that receives, and not stop and not figure out what happened. I do think there were some mitigating circumstances, being the other driver and the fact that I believe the child was taken away rather quickly. I don't think that Ms. Nash thinks that's an excuse. But Ms. Nash is an employee. She arrives to court every day in her work attire. She's a member of our community. I think that while it is obviously lucky that there was no severe injury in this case, Ms. Nash understands how lucky she is, and I would ask for fines and costs or short-term probation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lawrence?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is very scary for the parents of this child. My brain cannot comprehend hitting a young child with your vehicle and then driving away. I don't understand that. I think that in itself is a public safety concern, the fact that the defendant did that. I know that the family really is just struggling with wanting to know why she would do that, what was going through her head at the time. I'm not sure if they will get those answers that they're looking for or not. But given the facts of this case, I do support the probation department recommendation for 6 months probation, and I would ask the court to follow that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nash, you had the right to address the court prior to sentencing, and I realize you pled no contest. So, but is there anything you'd like to say before I impose sentence?
I just feel bad about the situation, really bad. I did try to reach out when the father, whoever it was picking up the child. I was yelling. Yes, it was my fault. I took off, but from what point of view I looked at it, I thought the kid was okay because, like I said, when he was on the left-hand side, he ran in front of my vehicle and got back up, went back to the left-hand side of the road. And then the parent, whoever it was, grabbed the child. I was yelling to the top of my lungs. And it's like, yes, it was wrong of me to take off, but I just assumed, I guess, the kid was all right. I was terrified. Was it right? No.
Anything else?
What's that?
Anything else? I'm sorry.
I just feel that I should be charged for the failure to make a police report and the responsibility of the child's bills for when he went to the hospital.
Ms. Lawrence, is there any restitution requested?
There is not.
Well, the court has had the opportunity to review the pre-sentence investigation report that I had ordered, and in there it recommends that probation be for 6 months, fines and costs, and that you not consume any alcohol, you'd be subject to testing, not use illegal drugs, you're subject to testing, treatment and counseling recommended by the probation officer, no bars, no establishments where alcohol is sold by the glass, no drugs or alcohol where you reside, and 40 hours of community service work. I understand that accidents happen. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, I'm out driving and all of a sudden a child darts out from nowhere. That happens. That's why they're called accidents. I don't think you were out intentionally driving through town trying to strike kids. I just don't think that was the case. And I also don't believe that you had, ill intentions. No offense, but if you were out causing problems, we would have seen you by now. What does strike the court is your actions afterwards. And I realize it's a heat of the moment. I understand that you think that it was the father that picked up the child. You were hollering to the father, is everything all right? He says when he was interviewed by the probation department, he was so focused on the child, he didn't hear anybody yelling at him. And I can understand that as well. I find it hard to believe that you didn't discuss the conversation with your significant other, or not the conversation, but you didn't discuss what happened with your boyfriend. And that shocks me a little bit. Just because of how traumatic, and I realize you're in the healthcare field, but how traumatic it seems like that would have been. You struck a child, and from what I understand, it would have just been blocked from where he resides. Is that correct? Yeah. So I will be honest, I toyed with the idea of putting you in jail, or maybe not, toyed's not the right answer. I considered putting you in jail. That was one of the reasons why I ordered the pre-sentence investigation report, was because I wanted to know more and I wanted to get a fuller picture of what we were dealing with. I can only imagine from the parent side wondering what happened, why you did what you did, why hasn't anybody reached out, why wasn't it reported? And honestly, it wasn't reported until it was reported from the hospital. And then law enforcement drove around trying to find construction scenes, and they were unable to locate it. At least the way I read the report, they'd actually closed the case until a day or so later. The parents came forward and said, okay, this is the area we were in. And then they reopened the case and started doing an investigation. So I think, there's more to a sentence than just punishment. There's rehabilitation. There's also keeping the public safe. As I said, you weren't out acting in a malicious manner, so I don't think I have a need to keep the public safe. Punishment, I'll be honest, I don't think there's probably much more I can do that you yourself aren't living through, or at least I hope that you're living through. Reminiscing about what happened in this case and what you did wrong. And again, like I said, accidents happen. Even after I read the pre-sentence investigation report, I still wasn't sure that I agreed with that recommendation. But I keep going back to that if you were a criminal, we would have seen you by now. You have no violations on bond, even though you really didn't have a whole lot of conditions, but I didn't have any violations. You've appeared when you were supposed to, and I'll be honest, you have a somewhat believable, let me rephrase that. You have a believable argument as to why you did what you did. You thought the child had been retrieved by its parents, turned out it had, but if there were medical conditions that had to be paid for, they wouldn't have known how to get a hold of you. And that's part of the responsibility of reporting an accident when it happens, whether someone's injured or not. In that situation, common sense should just tell you to reach out and call the police and explain what happened. But in the end, one of the reasons why I asked for a pre-sentence investigation report is for the probation department to tell me whether or not, one, they think they can work with you on probation. And two, whether or not there's anything the court was not aware of at the time. Now, I can tell you, there's a lot of times I'll get these back and they say, well, there's nothing we can do, lock them up. But this isn't the case. They're saying they're not recommending any jail, and they're recommending that you be placed on probation for 6 months. That in and of itself is interesting to the court, because probation for 6 months is a relatively short period of time when you consider that if you do everything we ask you to do within that 6 month period, you can be released at the 3 month mark. And when I see some of the things that they've marked, I'm not even sure that they really have anything to do with the case. There are no allegations that you were drunk driving. There are no allegations that you were using any type of controlled substances. And I can't infer that because I have nothing to tell me to point me in a different direction, other than you didn't report the accident. And I will tell you in a lot of cases that the reasons they don't get reported is because of the other issues, like the drunk driving or use of controlled substance, but I have nothing that would indicate that from you. So while I think there could possibly be reasonable grounds to put you in jail, I have to start with the presumption that there is no jail in this case unless I find reasonable grounds. This wasn't that you struck another car and didn't report it. You struck a child and didn't report it. But I also believe there were mitigating circumstances, such as you thought the parent had retrieved the child. You tried to communicate with the parent, and just by nature, it didn't happen. So I am going to follow the recommendation of the probation department. I can tell you that if you had any prior history in your past, this would have been a completely different outcome. I am going to place you on a period of probation for 6 months. During that time, you're not to violate any law, report as ordered, not leave the state without the consent of the probation officer, keep your contact and employment information current. You will be eligible for early release if you've done everything that we've asked you to do. Even though this wasn't a drunk driving case, I still want you to take the alcohol highway safety education class and victim impact panel. That's geared more towards drunk driving, but I think there'll be a benefit from that for you. Now, the probation department, as I said, has recommended no alcohol and no illegal substances. I have no reason to order that. It's not being requested. And like I said, nor do I have any indication that that was involved in any way. So I am not going to order that. What I am also going to do is that you attend any counseling that your probation officer determines is appropriate, along with any additional programming that they feel is appropriate. The community service work of 40 hours, I'm going to bump that up. And I'm going to look at that as community service work in lieu of a jail sentence. So I'm going to order that you do, they suggested 40 hours of community service. I'm going to order 60 hours of community service. And I'm also, all right. There will be a $75 crime victims' rights funds fee, $50 state minimum fee. The maximum fine for this is $100, so I'm going to impose the $100, $150 court costs, $150 attorney fee. I'm only going to charge you for the 3 months of probation, which is $90. But if for some reason you end up staying over that, you'll be responsible for the monthly probation fee. You did not sit any jail in this case, right?
Yes, sir.
You didn't sit any jail in this case?
No.
All right. 0 days jail is 0 days credit. Now, today, there's not a request for restitution, but restitution can be brought at any time. So if in the future the family incurs medical bills and they determine and request the prosecutor to go after any type of medical bills or out-of-pocket expenses, that case can be reopened and restitution could be ordered. But for now, that's all I'm ordering. Any balance that remains unpaid for more than 56 days will have a 20% penalty assessed to that. I'll need you to go out to the front window where you checked in, get a copy of your judgment, make a payment if you're able to. If not, get set up on payment plans. And then you'll need to go downstairs and get signed up for probation. Okay. Do you have any questions for me about my probation order?
No.
All right. Did you have the opportunity to review that probation recommendation?
What was that?
The probation recommendation, were you shown
Yeah, I
that and read
talked to
that?
the lady, if that's what you mean.
Okay, but did you see her written report?
No, I did it offhand. Okay, doing it.
Ms. O'Mara, I would encourage you to show her a copy of that and let her see the impact that this has had on the family. And I will say, I understand that if I were a parent in this position, I understand that my sentence probably does not feel just and appropriate. But I'm also required to follow certain requirements and dictates of justice. And as I said, for many reasons, I just don't think, based on your history and performance, that it would require a jail sentence. But I hope at least it was a very strong learning experience. And but for the grace of God, nobody was killed in this. So, you can go out to the front window where you checked in. Good luck. Ms. Lawrence, here is your exhibit from the plea.
I'm wondering where that was. Thank you.
Court next calls the people of the state of Michigan versus Richard Ronald Dake. This is case number 253616 SM. Appearances counsel.
Courtney Lawrence on behalf of the people.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Michael Kaepernick here on behalf of Mr. Dake. He stands to my right.
You may be seated.
Your Honor.
We are here for a sentence for a plea taken on September 18th to domestic violence with a agreement for 4A. At that time, I had requested a pre-sentence investigation report be done. Has both counsel received that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. I had the opportunity to see it, review it with my client.
Any additions or corrections to it?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Lawrence, do you have any additions or corrections to it?
No, Your Honor.
Is there any victim input in this case?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Elocution?
Yes, Your Honor. In addition to what we had mentioned last, or we had spoke last time, after the court's comments that you made, Mr. Dake listened, he heard, he went out on his own and he took an anger management class. And he realizes that, as his mother ages, as he ages, he's gonna need those kind of skills. And you mentioned that, like what happens the next time? And I firmly believe that he doesn't want there to be a next time. Sister, who is attempting to take care of his mother right now, she is struggling mightily. And I'd seen some of the text messages she sent, she's tapping out as well. So I commended him for that. It's getting the help you need, that's the proactive piece. So that's the only addition to what we had spoken last time about that we want to add for today's record.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Lawrence?
Thank you, Your Honor. After reading the TSI report, I do feel like the defendant is still downplaying his actions in this case, which is concerning to the people. Even though there was a witness to this, and the witness was so concerned for the victim that he attempted to approach the defendant and began yelling at him after he saw the defendant strike his elderly mother twice. I do understand the victim does want the no contact order lifted. People do have some concerns about that, given the facts of this case. But people would ask for the court to follow the probation recommendation and sentence the defendant to 6 months probation.
Mr. Dake, you had the opportunity to address the court prior to sentencing. Is there anything you'd like me to know?
Just that I'm very, very sorry to my mother and for this whole thing. I should have just opened the car door and got out and let her finish. And that's not what I did. So,
Your attorney said you've started anger management?
it's a 4-hour deal. I wound up reading it in 2 hours and I have no idea how to get 2 more hours on it so I can get a certificate that says I did it. So,
Is it an online
yeah.
one you're taking?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Your Honor, for the record, I never hit my mother one time. I did not. Period.
Well, I understand that, and I also understand, I remember the plea taking process, and we had quite a avenue to get there. Because you'd said that you didn't strike her. You had to hold your fist up in a way to try to get her to stop complaining to you. But what I do have is I've got a witness that says that you did, and I've got your mother saying that you did. So, you can shake your head all you want, but what I'm left with is what I'm left with. I've got one person saying it didn't happen. I've got 2 people saying it did happen. And again, this was one I had requested the PSI to be done because of the request for the 4A. That's something that, given the situation that was presented to the court had great concerns about allowing this case to be, I don't want to say swept under the rug, because I know that's not what it is, but to be removed from a public record. However, after having reviewed the pre-sentence investigation report, I am going to go along with part of the recommendation. So I'm gonna do the 4A, but I think they're recommending 6 months probation. And counsel, correct me if I'm wrong, the agreement was just for 4A, not a specific length of probation, correct?
I believe so, Your Honor.
That's correct.
All right. So what I'm going to do, sir, is I'm going to sentence you under the 4A. I'm going to place you on a period of probation for 12 months, not the 6 months recommended. And I do that for a couple reasons. One is to make sure that the appropriate programming and the length of time necessary for the appropriate programming is there. So often, and especially now this wouldn't qualify for it, but under the new rules that if people are successful with the probation, they get removed at the halfway part. And so often that's hardly enough time to get the necessary programming done and to let that sink in. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing the 12 months instead of the 6 months, again, realizing that you're not eligible for early release. So during that time, you are not to violate any law. The court is ordered not leave the state of Michigan without the consent of your probation officer. Keep your contact and employment information current. As I said, you're not eligible for early release. I'm going to order that you attend any counseling that your probation officer feels is appropriate, including anger management. And I realize you've started that course, but it'll be up to your probation officer to determine whether or not that's a satisfactory course for her. You are also not to act in any violent, threatening, intimidating behavior. No purchase or possession of a firearm or weapon. I'm going to order that you do any additional programming that your probation officer feels is appropriate. There is a $75 Crime Victims' Rights Fund fee, a $50 state minimum fee. $150 fine, $150 court costs, $150 attorney fee. You're appointed, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, $150 attorney fee. The 12 months of probation is $360. I'm also going to order that you do some community service work. Want to order 14 days of community service. I'm not going to impose a jail sentence yet because I don't believe that's appropriate yet under a 4A. So I will be upfront with you. It'd be time served, but it's not appropriate for me to order that yet. Ms. Lawrence, anything in any judgment of sentence and probation that I've missed?
Your Honor, did the court want to make a ruling about the no contact order?
Thank you. I will allow the no contact to be lifted at the recommendation of the probation officer. All right, anything else for the record?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Dake, you can go out to the front window where you checked in, get a copy of the judgment, make a payment if you're able to. If not, get signed up for a payment plan, and then go downstairs to the probation department and get signed up for probation.
Yes, Your
All
Honor.
right, good luck.
Sure I don't miss it.
Court next calls the people of the state of Michigan versus Lawrence Andrew Sarna. This is case number 253455SD, appearances counsel.
Robert Hartzell for Mr. Sarna.
And we are, you may have a seat. We are here for a sentence on a plea taken to an operating while intoxicated on September 18th, 2025. I have received the substance use assessment. Have both counsel received that?
Yes, sir.
Do either counsel have any corrections or additions to be made to it?
No, we have to defense.
Allocution, Mr. Hartel?
Yes, Your Honor. We do realize that there are both positives and parts of concern in this report. It does, of course, mention that my client does have at least a mild condition and does have a history of both drugs and at least a mild use of alcohol. What I would say is that I am proud of my client for doing, if I recall correctly, well on bond. I don't believe we've had any bond issues.
We haven't.
He's had family here for moral support with him every time I've seen him come to court, including today. I do believe that if the court felt the need to choose between jail or probation, that he would do well on probation. He's highly motivated. That being said, because he has done well on bond, I would ask the court to at least consider this being a fines and cost situation. He is very cognizant of the fact that even though he has no desire to get in trouble again, but if he did, he would obviously be increased. These are the type of condition convictions that increase. It goes from 93 to 1 year to a 5 year, that heaven forbid it can be habitualized. He has every desire to avoid all of that. Being on bond, not for anyone, but that's not what's set up for us. It makes the public safe. Just so the court's aware, I do believe he's learned his lesson. I'll put it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carey?
If people are gonna ask for probation, over 0.19, I would say 0.194.
I had 194, 192 written down.
Which is more than double the limit. Let's pull over. This is also concerning, we pulled over it just after noon on M55 going 80 miles an hour. So I think a period of supervision is appropriate.
Mr. Sarna, you have the right to address the court prior to sentencing. Is there anything you'd like me to know?
No, Your Honor, other than I was not. 68. So say tags were on order or something like that, but they're not.
Thank you. Have you had the opportunity to review the substance use assessment?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Most of that is correct, Your Honor, other than how my mother died, but
Other than how your mother died?
yes, she died of cancer. She drank every day, but she died of cancer.
So it was cancer.
Yes.
All right. And so I read in here that to help you essentially, and I might be paraphrasing this, but to help you cope with some issues you were going through, your grandmother started giving you alcohol at age 9?
Yes, Your Honor. I guess that would be a Polish thing. That's, I don't know, but my dad would take us over there. That's what they would do. We would go over there, have snacks, and she would like sneak us shots or whatever. Like I said, I don't know if other Polish grandmas did that or what, but I mean, it didn't affect me in getting a job and staying at my job for 26 years. And that's all I do, Your Honor, is work. I work 12 days on, 2 days off, and then I usually volunteer for the weekends that I have. Because that's all I do is work. If I don't hang out with friends, I don't go to the bar, I don't really do anything but hang out with my beautiful wife. That's all I do. And that day that I got pulled over, I had drank a little too much the night before, and I did not realize that, and I was going to work that day, and apparently I shouldn't have been driving.
So I'm assuming you didn't become an avid drinker at age 9.
No.
At what point did you become a regular drinker?
Every day, I would say, I mean, I drank with my friends when I was in my teens, but it wasn't an everyday thing. I would say my mid to late 20s, I would say I was drinking about every day.
And you're 53 now?
53.
Has that been a constant since your late 20s?
Yes, pretty much. It's just, I guess it must have been the way I grew up with my mother. I mean, she would drink a gallon of R&R a day. I mean, me and my friend would actually help her out with that, but when we should have. But it was just, I guess, the availability or being there.
At some point, did you become concerned with your drinking?
When I got married to my wife, I believe is when I started really thinking about it, because she would tell me, hey, later, you need to slow down, you need to slow down. A lot of the times I wouldn't listen to her, and then the next day I would look at it. I should have slowed down, and I did stupid things, and we would argue about it, and we never should have. But yes, I believe I did have a problem.
Did you ever take steps to?
I've been to counseling before. I've been to AA. The last counseling I went to was in Manistee. But it's right across from the casino. She was very nice, and that helped a lot, I guess, seeing a counselor to talk about that.
So I know Ms. Carey told me, and I apologize, I forgot. I know you were driving to work, but what time of day was it that you were stopped?
It was, I leave at like 11:30 at my house at 11:30. So then I was pulling in the Cadillac I got pulled over by a Cadillac. So it was probably 12, after 12, something like that. Yeah, I did not realize that I had been that intoxicated. I guess it's just I go to work, I drink coffee, and I don't think about it. And I don't, I guess I didn't think I was overly intoxicated like I was, I guess, but it's just something that I did.
How?
And I haven't done that, of course, in 2 months almost.
How long before you were stopped had you stopped drinking?
Before I was pulled over?
Yes.
Oh, that was the night before.
Okay, but was that What time? I don't know
Oh,
what that
it
means.
was probably, like I said, I went to bed late. It was probably like 6 in the morning. It was morning, I guess. I guess it was the same day then. I mean, but
Because of the shift you work.
yes, the shutdown work.
So-
I get out at, I work from 2 to 10:30 and then I usually stay up and watch movies with my wife until 3 o'clock or so. And then I don't. I think it's 3 and then 9 or something. I was still, yes, I was still intoxicated.
So the assessment says that you have a moderate substance use disorder. And there's 4 ways you can test. There's no disorder, mild, moderate, and severe. So you're not at the top level, which I guess say from what I've read and from what we've talked about, that kind of surprises me. But I don't do the assessments. I only read them. So now there was, at least according to your Secretary of State record, there was an accident in 22 in which it was reported that you were drinking then or had been drinking.
I had put my car into the ditch, Your Honor, yes.
Okay.
But that, I was coming home from a buddy's house and I never should have been driving back either. I should have stayed the night there. That was a stupid mistake.
But you did not have any criminal charges out of that?
I was charged for that, but it wasn't until like 4 years after. And I'm still paying fines for that too.
Okay. Where was that?
That was in Manistee.
Nasty. Just take a look to make sure I didn't miss something. So for whatever reason, that's not reported in your criminal history. It shows on your Secretary of State that you had a crash, that you've been drinking, but it does not show the conviction in either your criminal history or on your Secretary of State record. I can't explain why that is, but that's, so you've already, from what you're saying, not based on what the record says, but based on what you're saying, technically, you've already reached that 1 year point that Mr. Hartel was talking about for an OWI second, because you've got a prior conviction, it sounds like. It's just not showing in your record. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
So had it been showing in your record, you probably would have had the OWI second charge. Now, explain to me why, after you had that incident, why things didn't change,
when things had changed.
had not
Oh,
changed.
had not changed. I was going through a lot back then. I was doing a different job than that absolute behavior. And I guess I took it out with alcohol and I was still drinking way too much, you know, and I know that, Your Honor. But I should have listened to my wife earlier. That, you know, like, hey, you gotta slow down and stop. Because like I said, that's all I do is hold it. So, about 6 or 7 minutes. I don't really do anything else.
All right, well, I think, or I believe a period of probation is appropriate. I know we start with the presumption of no jail and probation in a case like this, but the court can overcome that presumption, and I believe I can, based on the outcome of the assessment of having a moderate disorder, the fact that you in 22 had another incident involving alcohol, and the fact that you were a 0.194, 0.192 when this event happened. So I do, for those reasons, find reasonable grounds to place you on probation. I'm going to place you on a period of probation for 24 months. I do that because I think there's some things that need to be addressed, and I think you realize that as well.
Yes, sir.
So hopefully this will give enough time to get those addressed and for you to start working on the progress to getting those issues taken care of. During that time, you're not to violate any law. A report is ordered, not leave the state of Michigan without the consent of your probation officer. You're to keep your contact and employment information current. Now, this charge does allow you to be released early from probation. So if you've done everything that we've asked you to do and you've been successful, you can be released at the halfway mark. If something happens that your probation officer doesn't think you should be released, but you think you should, you can petition the court on your own, and we'll have a hearing and I'll make that determination as whether or not you should be terminated early. During that period of time, you are to attend the alcohol highway safety education class and the victim impact panel. You are not to consume any alcohol, no illegal drugs, including recreational marijuana, and you'll be subject to random testing. Now, I realize your assessment indicates that you don't have an issue with those substances, but I don't want you trading one for another, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm ordering that. I'm also going to order that you follow the substance use assessment recommendations. I'm going to order any counseling that your probation officer feels is appropriate, along with any additional programming that they feel is appropriate. There is a $75 Crime Victims' Rights Fund fee, $50 state minimum fee, $150 fine, $150 court costs, $150 attorney fee. Probation, I'm only going to charge you half of the probation, so the 12 months is $360. If you end up staying longer than that, you'll be required to pay the monthly probation fee. Ms. Carey, are there any reimbursements requested?
Yes, for the Michigan State Police and for the rest. Was not a blood draw, though, I believe it was a breath of an intoxilizer.
So $200.
Correct.
Sir, I'm also going to order $100 prosecution fee and a $200 reimbursement to the state police. In certain circumstances, the law allows the prosecutor and the police to recover some of the expenses in prosecuting cases such as this. And OWIs happen to be one of those. So that's why I'm ordering. Is there any jail?
1 day.
1 day jail with 1 day credit. Because I have sentenced you to a term of incarceration, even though it's time served, you do have the right to appeal that decision. If you decided that you wanted to appeal it and could not afford an attorney to assist you, you have 14 days from today's date in which to request a court-appointed attorney. Also, any balance that remains unpaid for more than 56 days will have a 20% penalty assessed to it by operation of state law. I need you to go out to the front window where you checked in, get a copy of your judgment, make a payment if you're able to. If not, get set up on a payment plan, and then go downstairs and get signed up for probation. Okay?
Okay,
All right, good luck.
thank you, Your Honor.
Court next calls the people of the state of Michigan versus David Jacob Smith. This is case number 253801 SD. Appearances counsel.
I'm gonna carry for the people.
Even America, Mr. Smith.
We are here for a sentence to a plea taken on September 24th to an operating while intoxicated. I have received the substance use assessment. Have both of you received that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are there any additions or corrections to be made to that?
No.
No.
Allocution, Ms. O'Meara?
Your Honor, my client acknowledges the serious mistakes that he's made. He does have a history with alcohol, but and he told me this, that he had cut it out once he started having responsibilities when he got married, had a job, had a child, and this is a very out of character thing for him now. I do believe that the crash which occurred, the insurance received that, in order for punishment that ought to be taken into consideration. I know that my client is out of bond right now, which indicates to me at least that he's a good candidate for supervision. I would request that the that he be placed on a short probation, along with any others or counseling or classes that the court sees fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carey?
Thank you. This did involve a crash on a motorcycle on Sunnyside Drive just after midnight. April 30. And if I recall correctly, I'm just double checking. I walked away from the scene and found elsewhere. BAC was 0.195, which is very concerning. And people are going to request an extended period of probation, looks like the other case, given the risk that he presents to society and the very high level of alcohol content.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, you have the right to address the court prior to sentencing. Is there anything you'd like me to know?
Yes, I deeply regret my actions for that night. Like Sawyer had said, it was way out of character for me. I had some stuff my way I was dealing with. My grandpa passed away. My mother had just been diagnosed with cancer. So I'm guessing I just went overboard. And then that night in the accident, I had broke my C7 in my neck, which I'm grateful to be able to walk and be alive to this day. And I did sustain a concussion that lasted about 4 days. But while I was in the hospital, my daughter had called me and was crying her eyes out. They had thought I had died, and that just completely changed me as a person. I never want to go through that again, put my family through that ever again.
How old is your daughter?
She was 10 years old.
Are you healed up now?
Not fully. I still believe I do have some physical therapy I have to go through. I am back to work. It is a struggle, but I push myself through it because I have bills. I got obligations as a father to do.
Refresh my memory what you do for work. I know that your boss worked with you during this
Yes.
time.
I am a welder fabricator / traveling maintenance. I travel the state and sometimes out of state. Obviously, with this going on, I won't be able to go. What I get out of it.
And I know you ended up getting your GED and doing some college.
Yes.
The college, is that in relationship to the fabrication that you do?
Yes.
All right. How long ago was that?
2013.
Okay.
I did some youth build stuff too when I was younger, to try and get my life straight. Because as an adolescent, as you've seen on my criminal background, I had issues going on that I worked through. And I did that program, which is a state funded program, to get my GED. Volunteer hours, help with people and all that. Help build homes for Habitat, programs for disabled. After the fact.
All right. So, you brought up your past, and I know we would have brought it up at the arraignment. So it looks like, yes, in your younger days, you did have some issues. You had an MIP and you had an open intox, but that stopped in 13. So between 2013 and July 26th, what had you been doing to stay, at least out of the court's eye? I'll put it that way.
Spend time with my family, help, watch my daughter grow, work with them. Working a lot. I work a lot.
Okay. Was the and I know, at least I'm assuming, because we haven't had any bond violations, that the night of the accident was the last time you drank?
Correct.
And obviously you weren't arrested the night of the accident. So when were you released from the hospital?
The next morning with an necklace, and that lasted about 2 weeks before I could take that off.
Do they have to do any surgeries?
No.
Right, so just the brace and some physical therapy and.
Yes. And concussion. And I'm dealing with other issues on top of that. Back's numb, it hurts. It's hard to sit in a chair that doesn't have a back on it. So I'm gonna have to learn to live with them because of my own actions.
You're 33?
33.
Now, the assessment says that you started using alcohol at the age of 11. I assume that wasn't an everyday thing, or was it?
No, it's not.
Is there a point where it became an everyday thing?
Probably in my 16s. It started, well, not every day, but at least every weekend.
More regular?
Yeah, and then I turned 21. Like, that's what I heard. So once I got a house and a family, I slowed way down and I've been focusing on that mainly.
So the substance use assessment says that you score with a mild substance use disorder. I know you were in here before, but there's 4 ways you can score: none, mild, moderate, and severe. So you're not out of the woods, but you're on the lower end of the spectrum, so to speak. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
So prior to the accident, how often were you drinking?
2, maybe 3 times a month,
A month?
depending on my job.
Anything else you'd like me to know?
I hope that is it, Your Honor.
Well, as I know you heard me say before, but I have to say it on each case, I know there's a presumption in these cases that we start with no probation or jail. That is a rebuttable presumption. And I believe in this case, given the level of intoxication at a 0.195, the fact that there was an accident involved, and the fact that even though your criminal history is relatively old, the 2 charges you have on your record are alcohol related as well. So I am going to put you on a period of probation. I'm going to put you on a period of probation for 12 months. During that time, you're not to violate any law. Report is ordered, not leave the state without permission of your probation officer, and keep your employment and contact information current. This charge does allow you to be released early from probation. So if you've done everything we've asked you to do and have no violations, you can be released at the halfway mark. If your probation officer doesn't think you should be, but you think you should, you can petition the court on your own, and we'll have a hearing and I'll make that determination. I want you to attend the alcohol highway safety education class. No alcohol, no illegal drugs, including recreational marijuana. I don't want you switching one object or one substance for another, and you'll be subject to testing pursuant to the terms of your probation officer. I also want you to follow the substance use assessment recommendations. Any counseling that your probation officer feels is appropriate, along with any additional programming. There is a $75 Crime Victims' Rights Fund fee, a $50 state minimum fee. I'm going to do a $100 fine, $150 court costs, $150 attorney fee. I'm only going to charge you for half of the probation, which is $180. If you end up staying longer than the 6 months, then you'll be required to pay the monthly fee after that. Ms. Carey, are there reimbursements requested?
There is to this Cadillac City Police, there was a blood draw, and to our office.
All right, there will be a $100 reimbursement to the Wexford County Prosecutor's Office and a $300 reimbursement to the Cadillac Police Department because of the blood draw. Mr. Smith, in certain cases, the court is able to order reimbursement for certain expenses. And in OWI cases, that's permitted for reimbursement for a portion of the prosecution expenses and to law enforcement. Is there any jail in this case? No jail, correct?
No.
0 days jail with 0 days credit. Any balance that remains unpaid for more than 56 days will have a 20% penalty assessed to that. I'll need you to go out to the front window where you checked in, get a copy of your judgment, make a payment if you're able to, and then go downstairs and get signed up for probation. I think you were just on random testing, correct? You weren't on the daily testing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did daily because of my job.
Oh, okay. That can stop today. Any questions for me? All right, you can go up to the front window where you check in. Good luck.